Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Cosmically Curious. You have unlocked a new part of my apartment. We've got the desk where the magic happens, aka my 9-to-5 job that pays my bills. We've got the TV where I watch Broad City over and over again. And we've got the very Gemini-esque bookshelf here, full of books that I have read 3 times through. Shout out to Sarah J. Maas if you're watching this. And a bunch of other astrology books and other things that are really special to me. So welcome to this new area of my apartment. It's not very big, so there's not much left to see. I am filming this on October 12th, the day of the Leo eclipse that I talked about last week, and I have some plans this weekend. I'll be out of town, so I won't really be able to record the episode this weekend, so I'm doing it ahead of time. And it's always really kind of a fun experiment for me to be doing these episodes while the astrology of the previous week is still happening, because in my own personal practice I'm always a little bit ahead, always very aware of what's happening in the sky, but these are very much week by week to keep it a little bit more simplified for you. And I think today we might get a little bit personal because this is a pretty small audience still, and I think it'll be fun to give you guys a little bit more of a glimpse into how this eclipse is showing up in my personal life. I will share a few pieces of my own eclipse experience that is sure going to continue to play out over the rest of this week into next week. And something that I've been talking a lot about with the eclipse and this Leo energy is really our ability to express ourselves authentically and truly. There is a part of our ability to express ourselves and whether or not we do it fully because of that Leo desire and core need to be seen, wanted, and loved by the people in our life. And so if we express ourselves and are rejected or not validated in our experience, it creates something within our system that almost makes it harder to do moving forward. Now, whether or not that came from expressing yourself in childhood or expressing yourself in a relationship, there's a lot of things that create our coping mechanisms that we act out in this present here and now. And if you are drawn to me as an astrologer, there's a reason for that, because we are on the same wavelength. I am actively moving through astrological frequencies within my own life. And though I always bring in other perspectives around that frequency, my perspective and insights and downloads are deeply influenced by what I'm going through in my personal life. If you connect to what I'm saying, there's a reason for that, because we are on the same wavelength. We are experiencing and going through these different things. Sometimes things might not resonate with you, what I say, because you're not going through that, right? I want you to be aware of that relationship that you have with the information that I share with you on these episodes and on Instagram and within our own intimate one-on-one sessions. So as most of you know, I am in a relationship, and we are coming up to the 9-month mark, I think, which truthfully, historically, that is when my avoidance kicks in and I run out the door. Now, there's no sense of that here. I've done a lot of things to get to the point where my avoidance is no longer running the show. She pops up sometimes, but overall, she's not really there. And now I feel like I'm entering into this very unknown territory around having to actually express myself, because there is a part of me that really struggles to do that. For whatever reason, I have really struggled to be vulnerable, to express myself out of the fear of rejection, or my Libra moon, out of the fear of conflict and shaking up the equilibrium and that balance in my life that is so important to my emotional well-being, is to feel like there is a sense of balance and equilibrium within my life. And so the best way to keep that balance is to not bring things up, because bringing things up ultimately shakes the balance and makes the scales go like this, right? Which Leo moons do not want. And so as I am getting to this point in my relationship where I would normally run and go out the door, but that's not something that I want to do or feel called to do, I am now being faced with, okay, since I'm not going to leave, since I'm not going to just bite my tongue and dip out, now I actually have to talk about things? Excuse me? That is a shock to my system, to my Libran moon system, truthfully. And it's been very challenging. And I went to bed last night with something on my mind that's happening within my relationship. And I woke up feeling just like crap about it. I could feel it in my body. I felt really dragged down. It was bringing up a lot of familiar feelings that I felt in the past. And I knew I had to say something. And instantly I go into the Libran need to strategize. Okay, when am I going to say this thing? How am I going to say it? When is going to be the right time? And I have spent so much time in my past relationships strategizing to the point where I don't actually do it, because strategically it's never a good time to bring up something that might shake things up and make things feel a little unbalanced. And I'm speaking to this from the perspective of somebody who has a partner who is very, very loving and kind and compassionate and always meets me where I need to be met. So there's no part of this conversation that is falling on him. It's just a reflection back to you all of how this eclipse is showing up for me. And so I knew in that moment I had to just send the text. So I did. I sent a long text, and it was really scary. My adrenaline was pumping. I was going crazy. And of course, him being the attentive partner he is, he says, "Can I call you?" And he calls me, and we talk it through, and it's not resolved by any means, but there is a sense of relief that I instantly felt in my body, and a weight that was lifted when I just said what was on my mind and allowed him to meet me there. And I think that this really is the eclipse lesson that I will be learning while the South Node moves through Leo, because in whole sign it's moving through my 7th house of relationship, and in Placidus it's going to also be moving in my 6th house, which to me is really that self-sacrificing behavior, the things that we do because we think we need to do it for somebody else. I'm really learning a lot about my expression in relationship, but also in my business, really expressing myself fully. And it comes back to when we are our full selves, when we are expressing ourselves, it gives people in our life an opportunity to meet us and re-teach us, or I'm showing my own nervous system that it is okay to express myself and to maybe feel like I'm shaking things up. Ideally, if you're in the right relationship, it's going to balance itself back out, but that's going to come with the Libran fear of having to have the conversation or having to be vulnerable. But it's those moments where we are vulnerable that actually create deeper intimacy, that allow us to be more vulnerable the second time around. And that is really what I am experiencing right now. Venus is also still in Libra, and we will continue to experience the Venus in Libra themes once it goes retrograde back in September. It's not retrograde yet. We talked about that last week, but there is this thing that keeps coming up for me in relationship, not just romantic, even in your one-on-one relationships with your career, with your friendships, with your family, around the need to strategize, and always strategizing when it's going to be the right time to do something or when it's going to be the right time to say something. But the truth is there's no strategy in honesty and raw communication. So that is what I am moving through currently, and I'm very grateful to have a lot of resources in my life that help me move through these moments. I had a feminine embodiment session today with my business mentor. I have a meeting with my somatic coach this afternoon. I have a few readings tonight where I'm really going to be able to connect with other people and allow my own experiencing of this to actually support other women in their own experiencing. And then my plan is to just sit with myself and let this stuff move through me. That's always what we're doing with the eclipses. So whatever came up for you this past week, just allow yourself to move through it. There's no manifestation, there's no intention setting that needs to happen. Just move through it in whatever way feels the best for you. connecting to your body through something like breath work, moving your body, going to a yoga class, setting time outside of your busy schedule to just embrace a creative expression of yours, right? Set a timer for an hour and color. I don't know. I have a coloring book over there and I love to color sometimes, and it feels very good to pour back into myself in that way, and allowing any of the uncomfy feelings that come up to just be there and to sit with it, to breathe through it. Don't numb yourself with food or TV, alcohol. Really being aware of the coping mechanisms that come up during this time, and maybe how you can halt that for a second. And sometimes you do need to lay in bed and watch TV. That's okay. We can't always be healing or taking care of ourselves. Sometimes taking care of yourself is the TV, is the few episodes of Broad City. So that's where I'm at this week currently. We'll see where I'm at the end of this week. There's a lot of things that are shifting within my relationship, I think in the best way possible, as we commit deeper to each other. And I haven't made it this far in a very long time because I usually just dip out. And so this is brand new territory for me. This is unknown to my system, and I am learning every day what this looks like. And I think this is kind of sort of my nodal experience and my eclipse story that's going to be playing out over the next 18 months. So before I dive into the astrology of the week, thank you for listening to my story. Reach out if you feel connected to it, if you have a similar experience, and let's talk about it. Let's move through it. And if you feel like you need really dedicated support moving through this, you know where to find me. My books are open through September. I also want to invite you into a group program that will be starting at the beginning of Libra season in mid-September. That's going to be all about relationships, because I have learned a lot. I have come a long ways, and I have astrology to thank for that. I have breath work to thank for that, and I have a lot of other things to thank for that. And I am going to share that with you so we can all work together to start to untangle these relational knots that we have in our life, so we can be truly open and ready for a love that we desire and want. So I'm super excited about that. I cannot wait to share, but that's enough of that for now. We will go ahead and dive into the astrology of the week. One thing that I forgot to completely mention, I mentioned it at the beginning of the episode last week and then I never went into it, was the fact that Mars has now moved into Cancer, where it will be through the end of September. When Mars moves into Cancer, we are driven a lot more by our emotional and feeling experience of the world. Traditional Hellenistic astrologers will say that when Mars is in Cancer, it's in its fall or detriment. And what that really means is that Mars just has a harder time doing what it needs to do and what its function is when it's in Cancer. So things like initiative and your action and even your relationship to anger, your ability to start things and get momentum forward might feel a little bit harder to access. However, Cancer is still a cardinal sign. And so whereas Aries cardinal energy, like if we have a Mars and Aries in the sky, we're really going after it. However, with Cancer as the cardinal sign that Mars is now in, it's less about going after it externally and creating a space in your internal world from that which you can action on, creating a safe emotional experience, being just the right amount of protective of your own space, creating the right amount of boundaries between yourself and other people so that you can action from a place of emotional stability and safety. This can look like actually vocalizing any sort of boundaries or things that you need to feel emotionally secure, or just being able to cultivate that internally through any sort of practice that brings you back into your emotional center. For me, it's breath work, it's journaling. For you, that could look like activity, moving, getting outside. But while we are moving through eclipse season for the next few weeks and Mars is in Cancer, there is a natural inclination to go inward and to act less externally. And I think that's okay. Eclipse seasons aren't necessarily a time to make these big crazy decisions. However, sometimes they will force a decision on you. So it really depends on how this is activating your chart, what you are experiencing in your current lived human life. But this can show up in a few ways. But ultimately, if you feel more driven by your emotions, that's okay. If you feel a little bit more emotionally triggered or emotionally on edge, that's also okay. But you need to be responsible for the ways in which you release that emotional energy. Okay, like I said, going outside, moving your body, breath work, other somatic things, spending time with friends and family, putting the phone away. There's a lot of options here, guys. You can't blame anybody but yourself for emotionally freaking out at all the people in your life, okay? And sometimes you have to. Sometimes you gotta freak out at people. I don't know. Rupture and repair, baby. I'm learning all about rupture and repair. We are all learning with this transit when it is time to emotionally incubate and go inwards. We need to be able to put ourselves out into the world, but we also need to know when to incubate and go back into our little crab shell and take care of ourselves. Especially during eclipse season, there's going to be a lot of activity. Everybody's being activated in weird ways, some more than others. A lot of people are going through internal things that you don't even realize. So knowing when to put yourself out in the world, put yourself out into experiencing, and then when it's time to go inward and incubate, hang out on the couch, have a little bit of alone time. All of that's going to be coming up through the end of September. So the busiest day this week in terms of astrological energy that's going to be playing out is Monday, which is interesting because last week, Monday and Tuesday were also the most activating, and we kind of move into a quieter second half of the week before the following Pisces eclipse on the 27th, and that is a full moon eclipse. We are coming out of the conjunction with Mercury and Jupiter in Leo. So ideally by the end of this week, you were able to express yourself. There was a sense of something being started, ideally that feels really good, whether that's a creative outlet or a ability to express yourself more fully within your life. And then we come into a Mars square Neptune on Monday and a Mercury trine Saturn. And so the combination of this here as we come out of the eclipse, Mercury trine Saturn, it's very supportive. It's Leo and Aries, so it's very fiery. It's very supportive of an expression that needs to come out, and communication and expression for the sake of something that you are building, Saturn. What are we gonna do with this newfound insight or our newfound ability to express ourselves in a maybe deeper way, in a way that maybe we couldn't do just a week and a half ago? This week, our words can land a little bit more. They can have a little bit more of an impact in what we are trying to get across in our life. The Mercury in Leo, Saturn in Aries being a fire sign, fire can also be a little chaotic and a little uncontrollable. So as always with fire, be careful around the weight of your words here. Saturn in Aries lesson is like the weight of our words and the weight of our impulses, and being able to learn when to shut up, basically. And that Mars square Neptune piece here, the energy may feel a little bit drained today. That Cancer, Neptune and Aries, it's a sense of feeling emotionally drained. And we also do have a void moon in Libra all day Monday. So it feels like it's a little bit of a come down from the eclipse energy. That Mercury and Saturn trine will give us a little bit of energy to move forward. But if Monday feels a little heavy and a little hard and a little emotional, that's okay. It's like a little bit of that eclipse hangover we're getting. Venus is also sextiling Jupiter on Monday. So though it may feel heavy and tired, I think there is a sense of positivity and expansion that can happen amidst the tiredness. It's like, you know, having a really busy day and coming home and being like, wow, that was so much, but I feel so full, I feel so happy, and I feel so lit up. And then we don't have much worth speaking on until Friday into the weekend, where Venus is going to be opposing Saturn. So that Venus in Libra opposing Saturn in Aries, really playing off of the Mercury trine to Saturn here earlier this week. There's some conversations that are going to be happening here. When we have oppositions in the sky, it really is representative of something that's playing out within a relational experience, because we're mirrors, we're projecting, we're sitting opposite of each other in that way. And so once again, talking about that Libran strategy here, the Saturnian need to get things accomplished, I think that it can feel a little bit serious, or like you're trying to strategically move and dance through two separate people's expression. And there's a layer of fairness, Libra, and maturity, Saturn, and being able to approach any sort of eclipse realizations or downloads or debris in a way that is respectful and caring, and ideally for something long term to be more supported. It really is a sense of steadiness that we ideally can find with this Venus opposing Saturn. Now, there may be conflict, there may be some confronting experiences or energies, but that's a part of that projection of what other people bring to us. It's a mirror. And also, if this is not showing up relationally, it may show up in your relationship to your own reality, being faced with the reality of your situation, whether that's the finances that you do or don't have access to, the career that you don't want to be in, the city that you don't want to live in, or any sort of limitations that you have felt come up during this eclipse season, and how we can be strategic about those limitations too. If we're in a job that we don't like, okay, well, that job is supporting me for the moment. So how can I allow that truth and that limitation in my life to exist while I actively figure out a way to shift my reality? Saturn's really about reality and time and karma and the lack of time. And so that could also be something that shows up this week. I know I'm talking a lot about relational dynamics right now because the oppositions always bring up relational stuff. Venus is oftentimes attributed to relationships. And I'm also just experiencing this very heavily in my life, but there's other aspects that can come into play with these transits that we are seeing play out here. On Saturday, we do have the Sun in Leo conjunct the South Node in Leo, so that is going to be illuminating once again the eclipse energy. So we're still very much in this midweek between the two eclipses. We're still processing and moving through this energy. Just because the eclipse is over does not mean it's over. It lingers, it reveals over the next month, but it'll be most strong over these next few weeks. So that Sun conjunct South Node is really going to be shining its light on the South Node Leo stuff. So the more uncomfy, confronting, oh, I'm always performing, I'm manipulating situations, I crave validation, I want to be seen, I want to be loved, and when I'm not, it really makes me feel like crap, and it really triggers my little child in me, and I feel really sad and hurt, and like I want to be a hermit. That's what this Sun South Node is illuminating here for us. And so it might be a little tender, but then right after that conjunction, the Sun does move into Virgo, and we begin Virgo season at the end of this week, which is great. We definitely need some Earth, Virgo, and grounded energy in our life. And then right when it moves into Virgo, it comes into a trine with Chiron in Taurus. We are going to be ending the week on a grounded note here. It's like the Virgo Sun comes in, it trines with the Chiron in Taurus, and it says, hey, here are these parts of you that feel really sensitive, that maybe you put too much emphasis on when you're defining your own sense of self-worth. But how can we come back into our human experience and just allowing these parts of us to exist together while actively finding ways that we can support ourselves? Virgo can get very much like, I need to fix everything. And so it's a reminder that we don't need to be fixing everything all the time, but simply being in the moment, in the here and now, in our bodies is sometimes all that we really need to do. And so that's kind of how we'll end the week here. And then, of course, we will talk about the eclipse that's coming up next week. That's going to be at 4 degrees Pisces. It's one of the last eclipses that are happening on the Virgo Pisces eclipse that started last fall. We have one more in February of 2027. And so we will be playing with what that looks like and how that eclipse energy has been reflected in your life over the last 18 months and how it differs, how there's a different theme than the Leo eclipse that we just had this past week. The thing about astrology is that nothing is isolated. All of these things play out, and you don't need to get stuck on, oh, what is this specific eclipse story telling me? We don't need to get that technical. We don't need to be looking at the dates and figuring it out. I mean, it is a really fun exercise to see what has been alive in your life throughout those times. But what I really want you to focus on is what's coming up for you now. And what is it trying to show you? What are you being initiated into, and are you willing to go through that initiation, or are you going to stay comfortable, avoid something, and ultimately choose to not take action? So that is all I have for you today. I hope you all have a splendid week. As always, reach out to me. If any of this is really landing for you, send me a DM in my Instagram. I love to chat with you all. And my books for September are officially open, and stay tuned for more information on the group program for relationships that will be launching mid-September. I love you guys, and as always, stay curious.